Let's start with a brutally uncomfortable question. Have you ever opened your bank app after what felt like a completely normal month and thought, wait, where did it all go? No wild vacations, no sports car, no diamond-encrusted toaster, just groceries, gas, a few meals out, a subscription or 10. Maybe a new phone because your old one was acting weird, which is adult code for the battery annoyed me once. And yet somehow, your money vanished like it owed someone child support. Here's the twist nobody likes to hear. You're probably not irresponsible. You're not lazy. And you're definitely not bad at math. You're just playing a game that's been quietly redesigned. And the rules changed while you were busy living your life. Because most of the things Americans spend money on today, they're not just overpriced. They're structurally designed to keep you broke, tired, and slightly confused about how you ended up here. And the wildest part, everyone around you is doing the exact same thing, so it feels normal. That's the trap. Now stay with me, because in about 2 minutes, you're either going to keep nodding politely, or you're going to feel mildly attacked. Either way, that's progress. Because once you see this, you can't unsee it. Let's warm this up gently. Fast food. Remember when fast food had one job? It was fast, and it was cheap. That was the deal. You didn't go to a drive-thru expecting culinary enlightenment. You went because you had $12.05 before your soul left your body. Now, you pull into a drive-thru and somehow leave $17 poor, holding a paper bag full of regret and fries that went cold during the transaction. No waiter, no plate, no dignity. Just you, your steering wheel, and the quiet realization that this cost almost as much as a sit-down meal did 5 years ago. Fast food didn't get better. It didn't get healthier. It didn't even get faster. It just got more expensive, and everyone collectively shrugged and kept ordering. That shrug is important. Remember it. Because restaurants didn't stop there. Sit-down dining used to be a once-in-a-while thing that didn't require emotional preparation. Now it's an event. You sit down, you order 2 normal meals, maybe 1 appetizer because you're feeling festive. 1 drink each. Nothing crazy. You're not celebrating parole. The check arrives. $78 before tip. For food you'll forget tomorrow. And look, eating out isn't evil. But doing it 3, 4, 5 times a week? That's not lifestyle. That's a silent subscription you never canceled. $20 here, $30 there. It doesn't feel dangerous because it doesn't hurt all at once. It's financial paper cuts. And those add up faster than anyone wants to admit. Most Americans don't struggle financially because of one massive mistake. They struggle because of dozens of small ones that were marketed as normal. Which brings us to the most American purchase of all. Cars. Specifically, new cars. Buying a brand new car is one of the cleanest, most elegant ways to light money on fire without technically committing a crime. The moment you drive it off the lot, it loses a chunk of its value so large it deserves its own support group. You didn't hit anything. You didn't do anything wrong. It just happened. And yet people keep doing it. Why? Because new cars smell like success, and used cars smell like humility. A 3-year-old used car will get you to the same places, with the same air conditioning, while quietly letting someone else absorb the most painful part of depreciation. But logic doesn't sell cars. Status does. And Americans are very good at financing status, which is why so many people are driving around in vehicles they technically don't own, paying interest on something that is actively becoming worth less. That's not transportation, that's reverse investing. And don't worry, it gets better. Let's talk about clothes. Specifically, designer clothes. There is a massive difference between paying for quality and paying for a logo. One lasts. The other just announces that you paid extra. A plain white t-shirt costs $10. Put a tiny logo on it, $200. Same cotton, same factory, different ego. And here's the part nobody likes. Almost no one cares what brand you're wearing. They notice for half a second. Then they go back to worrying about themselves. So if you're buying logos to impress strangers, congratulations. You're winning a game nobody else is playing. Luxury brands don't sell clothes. They sell identity. And Americans have been taught, quietly, aggressively, that identity is something you purchase. Which brings us to vacations. Travel is wonderful. Experiences matter. But there's a fine line between enriching your life and financing memories you'll still be paying off when the photos stop getting likes. Flights are expensive. Hotels are expensive. Everything about travel is expensive. And yet people feel pressured to do it anyway. Not because they deeply want to, but because it looks like what you're supposed to do. Scroll through social media long enough and you'll start believing that if you're not traveling, you're failing. So people book trips they can't afford, swipe credit cards they don't understand, and return home with souvenirs and a mild sense of dread. The experience ends. The bill doesn't. 1 week of living your best life can quietly steal years of financial peace. No one puts that part on Instagram. Now let's pile on the quiet killers. Subscriptions, streaming services, music apps, delivery memberships, fitness platforms, productivity tools you used once. Each one feels small. $10 here, $15 there. Until you add them up and realize you're spending nearly $1,000 a year just to forget what you're subscribed to. And cable. Cable is the financial equivalent of paying for a gym you never enter, while actively avoiding canceling because it feels awkward. Then there's the gym itself. People sign up with hope. They go twice. Then life happens. But the payments don't stop. And because canceling feels like admitting defeat, the money keeps leaving your account every month. Quietly, politely, relentlessly. Which brings us to technology. Americans have been trained to believe that if a new version exists, the old one is obsolete. New phone, new laptop, new tablet. Even when the old one works perfectly fine. $1,000 every year or two. Not because your life changed, but because marketing told you it should. Most people use their phones for texting, scrolling, photos, and occasional existential dread. Your phone from 3 years ago could do all of that. But new feels good. New feels like progress, even when it isn't. And here's the uncomfortable truth hiding under all of this. Most of these purchases don't actually make life better. They just make life louder. More clutter, more bills, more stress, and less money doing the one job money is supposed to do. Buy freedom. Freedom from anxiety. Freedom from panic. Freedom from working forever. Instead, Americans are spending their best years financing convenience, status, and habits that quietly eat the future. Not because they're stupid, but because the system is very, very good at selling comfort today in exchange for stress tomorrow. And we haven't even reached the truly dangerous part yet. Because next, we're going to talk about how looking successful became more important than actually being secure. Why the richest people you know rarely look rich. And how the average American got convinced that debt is just part of adulthood. That's where things get really interesting. And slightly uncomfortable, which means we're doing it right. Let's talk about the most expensive illusion in America. Looking rich. Not being rich. Not being secure. Not being free. Just looking like you're doing great. Because somewhere along the way, Americans stopped using money as a tool and started using it as a costume. A really expensive costume, one that requires constant maintenance. New clothes so you don't look behind. A nicer car so you don't look stuck. A bigger house so you don't look like you failed adulthood. And the system loves this, because a person who wants to look rich will spend forever. A person who wants to be rich eventually stops. That's bad for business. So instead, we created a culture where debt is normal, stress is normal, and questioning it makes you weird. Credit cards didn't just change how Americans pay, they changed how Americans think. They blurred the line between can afford and can swipe. Before credit, money was physical. You felt it leave. You noticed when it was gone. Now money disappears digitally, silently, politely. No pain, no friction. No warning. Just a number updating somewhere you don't want to look at too closely. So people don't budget. They vibe check their bank account. Feels fine. Should be okay. I'll deal with it later. Later shows up with interest. And interest is where the trap really closes. Interest is not just a fee, it's a time tax. It charges you for wanting things now instead of later. And the cruel part? Most people don't even realize how much interest is costing them because it's designed to feel small. Minimum payments, low monthly numbers, friendly statements. It's financial anesthesia. You don't feel the damage until years later when you realize you paid double for something you barely remember buying. Now let's address the most sensitive topic of all: housing. The American dream, with a mortgage the size of a small nation's GDP. Owning a home can be powerful. It can be stabilizing. It can build wealth. But it can also become a golden cage. People stretch. They overextend. They buy the maximum the bank says they can afford. Banks are very optimistic about what you can afford. They assume nothing will ever go wrong. No layoffs, no medical issues, no burnout, no desire to breathe. So people buy houses that require them to keep earning at peak performance forever. That's not ownership, that's dependency. And the maintenance, the taxes, the repairs. Those don't care about your vision board. A house should support your life, not consume it. But again, the pressure to look successful wins. Because renting still feels like failure to a lot of people. Even if renting gives flexibility, even if it reduces stress, even if it allows saving and investing, the math doesn't matter when the ego is involved. Now let's talk about education. Specifically, student loans. Few things in America are sold as aggressively and questioned as little as higher education. From a young age, people are told, go to college, it's an investment in yourself. Which can be true, but what was left out? Price sensitivity, return on investment, risk. Teenagers signed loan documents they didn't understand for degrees they hadn't researched, for jobs that didn't exist yet. That's not education, that's optimism financed with compound interest. And again, education isn't the villain. Blind commitment is. Debt that increases your earning power can be powerful. Debt that just delays adulthood is not. Now zoom out and notice the pattern. Food, cars, clothes, travel, subscriptions, housing, education. None of these are evil. What's dangerous is how casually Americans are encouraged to overconsume all of them at once. The system assumes you'll always earn more later. That raises will come, that promotions will happen, that nothing will interrupt the plan. Life laughs at plans, recessions happen, industries change, health intervenes, burnout hits. And suddenly, a lifestyle built on assumptions collapses under reality. This is why so many people making good money still feel broke. Because their expenses grew faster than their freedom. They didn't upgrade their life, they upgraded their obligations. Now let's talk about something deeply uncomfortable. Comparison. Comparison is the silent engine behind most bad financial decisions. You don't want the thing, you want what the thing represents. Approval, belonging, status, safety. Social media didn't invent this, it just industrialized it. Now you're not comparing yourself to neighbors, you're comparing yourself to highlight reels. People don't post their debt, they post the result of it, and your brain doesn't know the difference. So you feel behind, even when you're doing fine. That feeling drives spending. Spending drives debt. Debt drives stress. Stress makes people avoid their finances. And avoidance is where things quietly get bad. Now here's the twist. The people who actually win with money tend to look boring. Older car, modest house, unimpressive wardrobe. But inside, no panic, no dread, no constant mental math. They don't need to impress strangers because their money is working for them, not against them. They bought time, options, peace. And peace doesn't photograph well, which is why it's rarely advertised. Now let's connect this back to the bigger picture. Public debt, private debt, consumption, culture. They all reflect the same habit, using future resources to satisfy present emotion. At a national level, it's political. At a personal level, it's psychological. The difference? You control one of them. You can't fix the system overnight, but you can stop letting it trick you. You can choose intentional spending. You can choose delayed gratification. You can choose understanding over impulse. Not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently. And that consistency compounds, just like interest, only this time in your favor. Now here's the uncomfortable setup for what comes next. If most of what Americans buy isn't actually worth the money, then what is? What actually improves your life long term? What deserves your dollars? What quietly makes everything else easier? So if most things Americans spend money on quietly make life harder, what actually makes it better? This is where the conversation usually gets boring, because the real answers aren't flashy. They don't come in boxes. They don't have unboxing videos. They don't feel impressive in the moment. But they compound, silently, relentlessly, like interest. Only this time, it's working for you. Let's start with the least exciting, most powerful purchase of all. Time. Not vacations, not experiences, actual control over your time. The ability to say no, the ability to slow down, the ability to walk away from bad situations. Money's real job isn't to buy things. It's to reduce dependency. Dependency on jobs you hate, on bosses you fear, on systems that don't care if you burn out. Every dollar you don't need immediately gives you leverage. And leverage is freedom wearing boring clothes. Now let's talk about the most underrated financial asset in America. Margin. Margin is the space between what you earn and what you spend. Most people try to increase income. Very few protect margin. They earn more, then spend more. They get raises, then upgrade everything. The result? Same stress, just nicer packaging. People with margin don't panic. They don't rush. They don't swipe reflexively. They can wait. And waiting is a superpower in a culture built on urgency. Now let's get practical. One of the best investments you can make isn't in the market. It's in lowering fixed costs. Cheaper housing relative to income. Reliable transportation without massive payments. Fewer recurring obligations. These don't feel like wins. There's no applause. But every month, they quietly pay you back. Lower fixed costs mean flexibility. Flexibility means options. Options mean you're harder to trap, which brings us to investing. Real investing, not gambling with better branding. The stock market is not a casino, but it punishes people who treat it like one. Short-term thinking, emotional reactions, chasing trends. Most Americans don't lose money because markets are unfair. They lose money because they don't understand what they're holding. Long-term diversified investing isn't exciting. That's why it works. It doesn't care about headlines. It doesn't respond to panic. It rewards patience. And patience in America feels rebellious. Now let's talk about education. The real kind. Not degrees, not credentials. Understanding. Understanding taxes. Understanding interest. Understanding risk. Understanding how incentives shape behavior. Financial literacy isn't about spreadsheets. It's about pattern recognition. Once you see how money actually flows, you stop falling for obvious traps. You stop asking, is this expensive? You start asking, what does this cost me over time? That shift alone saves people hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Now let's address a painful truth. Most people don't overspend because they're careless. They overspend because they're tired. Decision fatigue is real. Stress reduces discipline. Busyness kills intention. When you're exhausted, convenience wins. Delivery wins. Impulse wins. This is why energy management matters. Sleep, health, mental clarity. These aren't wellness buzzwords. They're financial strategies. A well-rested person makes better money decisions. A burned-out person just wants relief. And relief is expensive. Now let's talk about something Americans deeply underestimate. Boring consistency, automatic investing, regular saving, routine reviews. Not optimization, not perfection. Consistency. Doing the unsexy thing every month beats brilliance once a year. Most financial success isn't dramatic, it's procedural, which is frustrating and reassuring. Because it means you don't need to be special. You just need to stop sabotaging yourself. Now let's flip the lens. What should you be skeptical of? Anything that promises speed. Anything that promises certainty. Anything that requires you to act now or miss out forever. Pressure is the enemy of good decisions. Real opportunity doesn't need urgency. Scams do. And finally, let's talk about values. Money amplifies who you already are. If you value appearance, it will trap you. If you value freedom, it will help you. There is no right way to use money, but there are consequences to every choice. The goal isn't to never spend, it's to spend on purpose. To align money with what actually improves your life, not what temporarily numbs discomfort. Which brings us to the final part. Because understanding all of this is pointless unless it changes how you think. And the most dangerous financial mistake isn't buying the wrong thing. It's never questioning why you're buying at all. So let's be honest with each other. If you've made it this far, this video isn't just background noise for you. You didn't click it to kill time. You didn't stay because of flashy graphics or dopamine tricks. You stayed because something here touched a nerve. Not fair. Recognition. That quiet moment where you thought, yeah, this explains a lot. Because deep down, most Americans already know the truth. They know they're working harder than their parents did. They know life feels more expensive, even when numbers look bigger. They know something about the money game feels off. What they don't always know is why. And when you don't understand why, you blame yourself. You think you're behind. You think you made bad choices. You think you should have figured it out earlier. That guilt is convenient. It keeps you quiet. It keeps you consuming. But here's the thing, nobody tells you clearly. The modern American financial system is incredibly efficient at one thing: turning intelligent, capable people into stressed consumers. Not because they're weak, but because they're human. Humans respond to comfort, to validation, to stories. And money today is sold almost entirely as a story. The story that you deserve it now. The story that everyone else is ahead. The story that success looks a certain way. The story that debt is normal and stress is just part of adulthood. And if you never pause to question that story, it becomes your life. Not dramatically, quietly, one payment at a time. But here's the part that should make you feel calm, not angry. Once you see the pattern, it loses power. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to money, you gain leverage. The moment you stop equating spending with success, pressure dissolves. The moment you realize most people are guessing, comparison stops working. And suddenly, things slow down. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel behind. You don't feel like you're failing some invisible test. You start making decisions from clarity instead of anxiety. And clarity is rare, which makes it valuable. Now let's address something directly. This video didn't tell you to stop spending. It didn't tell you to live like a monk. It didn't tell you money is evil. It told you something far more dangerous to the system. That you're allowed to think. You're allowed to question what's normal. You're allowed to ask what something actually costs. Not just in dollars, but in stress, time, and future freedom. You're allowed to choose boring over impressive. Peace over applause. That's not anti-ambition. That's intelligent ambition. The people who quietly win with money aren't louder. They're calmer. They don't chase every upgrade. They don't react to every headline. They don't need to prove anything. They understand one simple truth. Money is a tool. And tools only work if you're the one holding them. Now here's the psychological pivot. The part that actually matters. Right now, your brain wants closure. It wants to label this video as useful and move on. That's normal. But real change doesn't come from understanding alone. It comes from identity. From deciding, I'm the kind of person who thinks differently about money. Not perfectly, not obsessively, just deliberately. That decision shows up in small ways. Pausing before buying. Questioning urgency. Choosing margin over maximum. Choosing progress over appearance. Those small choices compound faster than any investment tip. And this is where this channel comes in. This channel is not here to sell you shortcuts. It's not here to promise easy answers. It's not here to scare you into action. It's here to give you frameworks, mental models, context, so you stop feeling confused in a system that benefits from confusion. If that's valuable to you, really valuable, then subscribing isn't about helping a creator. It's about curating your own environment, because what you repeatedly watch shapes how you think, and how you think shapes how you spend, and how you spend shapes how free you become. Hitting like isn't about algorithms. It's about reinforcing content that respects your intelligence instead of manipulating your emotions. Now here's the most important action, and the one almost nobody talks about. Send this video to one person. Not someone you want to impress, someone you respect, someone you've had real conversations with, someone who thinks about money but doesn't always agree with you. Because this video isn't about being right, it's about thinking better together. And finally, if you leave a comment, don't leave praise, leave thought. One idea that challenged you, one habit you recognized in yourself, one assumption that cracked a little. Those comments matter. They shape the direction of what gets made next. They turn this from content into conversation. This channel exists for people who don't want hype, who don't want fear, who don't want false certainty. Just clarity, honesty, and a smarter relationship with money. Thanks for watching. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just waking up. Welcome to the smarter side of the conversation.